Hello and welcome to Archer Enemies, the Hawkeye reaction show from the Comic Crush. We're going out a little bit later than planned. It's very late in the evening for me. I'm not doing this one in my pajamas this time, so don't worry. None of you have to get aroused. Speaking of not getting aroused or excited in any way, I'm here with Liz.
I'm very excited.
How you doing, Liz?
I'm great. Swell, in fact.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, so we're going out a bit later than planned. So you're probably seeing this on a Saturday afternoon or later. It being Christmas, things have kind of got screwed up schedule-wise a little bit. But don't worry, we'll be back on track for next year when we sort of come back with all the shows in late January. What are we talking about tonight? It's Hawkeye, yes. I don't like. I've done so many pods lately. I've got no idea what show we're doing or what it's about. This is the Hawkeye reaction show. Liz, a very exciting show this week.
It sure was. Yeah, it's kind of the moment we've all been waiting for. But a lot more than that too. You know, I think there's a lot of payoff in this episode. You know, if you've been speculating about, you know, what Marvel are doing with their franchise, and you know, some of the characters who you were really kind of hoping you'd see again.
And like, obviously we are going to do spoilers here, but there's some things we like. I've got to be careful what I say, especially about the end of the episode, because it kind of relates to something else that may or may not.
Yes, so we're not gonna, you know, obviously that's a whole other pod. That's a whole other pod.
Which is happening soon.
Yeah, which is happening tomorrow.
Yeah. So double dose of Marvel for your weekend.
Yeah. Folks. Oh yeah. I mean, like this, you know, obviously this has been a great week for me.
And I've got to say, me too. It was very exciting. Going to see Spidey and then coming back home and watching. In fact, I actually didn't have time to get through the whole episode of Hawkeye because I had to do another podcast that's just gone out afterwards. But yeah, like it took me a day or two to get through Hawkeye, unfortunately.
Well, I had to wait until Thursday to see Spidey. So you know, I watched Hawkeye on the Wednesday night when I got home from work, and then I went as promptly as is humanly possible to see Spidey the next day, and and what a treat that was. But that's another podcast, said, a whole nother pod tomorrow where we'll be recording that. So you'll get to hear all our thoughts on that. But tonight we're here to talk about Hawkeye.
Yeah, speaking of Marvel movies, like we're straight back into the more or less like the end of the Black Widow movie, which is currently on Disney Plus. If you haven't seen that yet, do watch it, especially before you watch this episode. If you've not seen it, because it is ever so slightly critical to this episode.
Yes, like that cold open with Yelena was awesome, really awesome.
Yeah. I really like the opening. I love what happens when you see true believers meet capitalists, and that's what that beginning was. You know, you've got the old school Soviet, or you know, old new school Soviet style of things meeting the kind of very corporate, hey, I just kill people for money now type stuff, which I really liked. And then we get the snap again.
And this was like a really unique vantage point on the snap. We've never actually seen this perspective on it.
No.
You know, the closest I think we've come is like Monica Rambeau in the beginning of WandaVision when she comes back. But this is Yelena literally snapping, and then like, you know, and you see that for her, it's like no time has passed.
Yeah.
But in fact, 5 years has passed.
And you get a sense of why they called it the blip, because it for her, you know, for anyone snapped, it was just a blip.
Right.
And I like that kind of changing of the colors in the bathroom and all that. And, you know, I wonder if we're going to get to a point in the current slate of Marvel movies or the stuff coming next year where we'll be able to move away from the the blip, because it seems so.
I mean, rightfully so. Rightfully so.
Yeah,
I mean, it was like this. As far as the MCU is concerned, it was the big, denouement of all the first 3 phases. So there should be, after effects, and we should see which characters have blipped and and how it's changed their lives and things like that.
Very true. And in fact, I think you brought up when I can't remember what pod we were doing it on, but you did bring up the whole point of was Yelena snapped or not?
She snapped,
yeah. And right you were. So we now clearly know that the stinger for Black Widow, the very end, was 5 years on.
Right.
And of course, it also means that the films, if they're 5 years on, aren't they set slightly in the future?
They are. Yeah.
Because I was when it comes up at the beginning of 2018, I was like, hold on.
Right.
1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm. Right. So yeah, we're not actually quite in sync with
no.
with the films.
But they've had this problem before with or this sort of thing before with Spider-Man No Way Home, with the kind of post Battle of New York stuff. Do you remember the kind of big furore about that? About how it was 8 years on,
right? So
it would have been 2020 when in fact it might have been
and that was I think that was Homecoming. I think that was Homecoming.
Yeah, Homecoming. Sorry, it's not No Way Home. I'm sorry,
but but same thing where it's just like, well, 5-10 years from now, nobody's gonna care or quibble about it because it doesn't actually matter. It's within a few years of when the films are coming out. So
yeah. And Yelena gets set on this path of, hey, I've got to go find Natasha. I loved that kind of very pregnant pause you get at the end of that scene where it's just like, well.
Right. That it's enough said, literally.
Yeah. And then they do the previously on, which was like an interesting. So you almost like get the previously on, and then.
Yeah, I love that it was just like this cold open, and they just go straight into Yelena. This episode really was like, Yelena's episode. Yeah, and it was great to see her. It was like, she was just such a treat to watch, as she had been in the Black Widow film. Yeah. She was kind of the standout character there, and she was the standout character in this episode as well.
I thought she was actually even better in this episode. I like, it was really nice to see Kate and her mum kind of try and heal their rift a bit, and Kate being honest about what was going on with Jack, even though
we come to find out, maybe
I'm pretty sure
a little hard on Jack,
isn't the bad guy, and it's then such a shame by the end when that kind of gets snatched away. However, we get this thing with Clint where he kind of finally wants to resolve these issues with Maya, with Echo, and of course we get another phone call to Mrs. Barton. I mean,
really,
what's going on there.
It keeps nudging me in the direction of like.
Do you think there's any way whatsoever? Like, you don't think that Laura could be related to the character at the end, do you? In any way, do you think?
I don't think so. No. I mean, well, okay. I don't. When I say that, I think when you say related, I think there's a possibility that she does have her own, beef with him. Yes, I do think there's a possibility of that. I think, the more we see of their dynamic together, the more I think, she's not just some housewife,
No.
Like they've worked together. She's as much as says, I understand, you don't need my permission to do what you have to do. I understand like nobody else can understand. So it's like, it really feels to me like, okay, they worked together, she has got to have some kind of background as like a spy or something herself.
Yeah.
And so, and so when you say, I don't think that there's a possibility at all that she could be working with the person we see at the end, but I do think she might have her own, like, she may have tangled with him in the past.
I wondered if they were going to turn out to be some sort of blood relative.
Okay.
And that the watch might be his.
Okay. So I don't know. That's possible. I mean, obviously they change things from the comics. They can kind of tweak things however they like. In the comics, he has various iterations of him have like, a son and, so, maybe he could have a daughter. I don't know. But I don't really see that. That wasn't like something that ever entered my mind. It was that she could be a blood relative, but.
Right. I mean, I'm just firing off. I'm
sure.
I'm invariably wrong.
All like speculation and stuff. Totally.
Yeah,
totally,
I'm invariably wrong because I always get the Marvel stuff wrong. I'm just not that.
Actually,
caught up in it.
You got something, in this episode that I had sort of, been skeptical of.
Which was.
I
don't remember.
One of the two characters we see in that photo at the end.
Yes.
Which I was kind of like, oh, I don't really think so. But it turns out you were right about that. I mean, and since we don't have to be cryptic. We're doing full spoilers.
Yeah.
The character that I'm talking about right now is Kate's mom, Eleanor Bishop. Because you, right from the off, said like, oh, she seems fishy. I feel like she's the one.
I think she's the big bad. Or not the big bad, but she's right up there.
Yeah.
Or I think she's maybe in debt to the other guy. And
I'll just throw out my theory that we kind of had previously discussed.
Yeah, please.
Well, like, so you and I, on screen, I sort of said, oh, I've got my own suspicions about who could really be the big bad, but now I really don't think so. So I'll just put it out on the table. I thought that actually, because we never saw a body, because of like various things that happened in the early episodes, that really the one who might be pulling the strings was Kate's dad. I thought, you know what? He might be alive. He might have faked his death, basically to allow his family to go on living, within the lifestyle they were accustomed to.
But that could still be the case,
It could still be the case. I mean, but that was my original theory. And now I think it might be like a shade too far just because of the number of characters we're juggling at the moment. I feel like
it's a lot of they can't really be introducing, although it would just be a reintroduction, I guess.
But they had this great little moment in episode 1 where like he throws like a toy or something at her and she catches it and he says, "Think fast." And I was like, oh, I like bet you anything there's going to be a moment like that, and he's going to pop back up. But I'm prepared to be wrong.
Possible.
It's possible, but
should we put bets on what will be thrown? I think it will be the watch. There's something about that watch that's more
we
than
still
just...
don't know what the mystery behind the watch is. We know it's likely to do with the Kingpin, but we don't really know the significance just yet.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I love the whole sequence with Clint and Maya in the Fat Man garage. I mean, it was a good action scene.
It was very, very reminiscent of Daredevil.
Yes.
Which, of course, at the end, we see the reveal of the Kingpin. So to me, it really felt like they were not only maybe paying homage, but like setting the stage to say these universes do interact,
Yeah, which is good. And this of course was following Feige's statement about a week ago where he said if Daredevil was going to come back into the MCU, he would be played by Charlie Cox, and that was the kind of that was as much as we got. And I know Dionfra's been pushing for kind of or about Hawkeye for quite a while, so there's been some nice stuff there. Did you see the tweet he put up today? I think it was today.
No.
So he just put the logo of Hawkeye up, and he just wrote "When I was a boy," which I really liked. I thought that was quite sweet.
That's so cool.
But like the confrontation between Maya and Clint was what I found most interesting, because he finally reveals that, hey, look, I was Ronin. But he also reveals to Maya, you know, I was only there because someone tipped me off, and the person that tipped me off was your boss, who wanted your dad out of the
boss,
way.
at least.
Yeah.
So the implication, I thought, was that the informant was Kazi.
Yeah.
And that obviously the one wanting her father dead was the Kingpin.
Because we still don't know Kazi's relationship to the Kingpin, or really even Kazi's relationship to Maya.
Well, Maya said you were his second in command.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's...
But was she referring to her father's second in command, or the Kingpin's second in command?
But also, he's
wasn't
kind
sure.
of young.
I would say, you know,
he would have had to have been doing that when he was like a teenager, right? Because he's quite young.
Yeah,
he looks quite young.
Yeah,
unless
I think he must have been her father's second in command.
You know, unless he was snapped.
True.
And
true.
Blip,
and around the time that her father was killed, theoretically, it probably still would have been Wesley, who was Kingpin's second in command.
Oh, I miss Wesley.
Looking at Wesley was so great. Yeah, he was awesome.
But yeah, I like that scene, and you know, Clint telling her, you know, back off or I'm going to kill you. It's like I'm not screwing around. And I think that's the difference between Clint and a lot of the other Avengers, and indeed Natasha and a lot of the other Avengers, is that they're absolutely ready to kind of throw down and kill people, whereas I think the others are kind of...
They're too heroic for that.
Fuzzy.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, it's a little fuzzy in the whole morality.
I mean, like Clint and Natasha, the difference between them and Thor, or, you know, Captain America, or even Iron Man, is that they are, you know, they're not super powered. They just have some cool gadgets and, you know, a lot of skill. And they were trained to kill. They were trained as spies. They were trained as assassins. So, you know, that's still there. And a lot of this show is about Clint grappling with that and, like, you know, his own darkness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I you know, I still think we're kind of headed into a precursor of him. Like, I don't want to see him die, but I can definitely see him kind of hanging it all up by the end. And I think this is kind of what it's kind of leading to. Just the whole mood.
Maybe they might be able to, like, you know, if it's Jeremy Renner wanting to leave or something. I mean, you know, the success of this show.
I don't think it's that. I think like, it's just it's more of a kind of just passing the baton and all that, and then he'll come back for guest appearances. You know.
I don't know. I'm rooting for season 2.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
You know,
that's equally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be nice if we do get season 2 to see some of the other sort of street level Marvel characters pop up. Like I desperately want Luke Cage to pop up, because I think of all those characters, he was the one who's hitting the most interesting point in his journey. You know, back when they cancelled the shows.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they'll necessarily carry that chronology over, like, you know, wholesale, but we'll see. But at least it seems, you know, with the appearance of the Kingpin, that the door is opening to, you know, to those characters reappearing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's going to be really interesting to see where, you know, where and who and how, all of that stuff. So I'm like, you know, I mean, this was like, it was immensely satisfying to see Vincent D'Onofrio pop up at the end of the episode.
Yeah, which is only in a photograph. You know, it's not. We only get a sort of very grainy shot of him. I mean, we've got to talk about Yelena and Kate's scene together, which was one of the loveliest scenes I've seen in ages.
I mean, it actually took up, like, you know, a good chunk of the episode. Like, you know, I mean, I would say the first half of the episode was mostly Yelena and Kate. And a big part of that was that scene, which was so great. It's like Yelena's just showed up at Kate's, like, burned out house and made macaroni and cheese. And, you know, sort of talks Kate into, you know, like, eating dinner with her. And
and I like those two together because they got that same kind of chaotic energy. However,
and bullshiness, like, you know, sort of confidence and almost you know, bordering overconfidence. But Yelena
however,
is
they
just
are
like
both killers. Yeah, or
they are. Well,
kill.
I mean, Kate isn't, but Kate is. Yelena is actually like, you know, she's a lot like Kate in like, you know, her sort of confidence and bullshiness, but Yelena is like Kate a few years on, where she has the skill to really back it up. You know, because as she says to Kate, "Oh, I could have killed you like in seconds. You know, you would never have even seen me. You know, if I wanted to." She's like, you know, she's obviously, you know, like she's done things that Kate hopefully will never do.
Yeah.
But as far as her like skills, like, you know, she's not, you know, Kate is constantly screwing things up because she's inexperienced. Yelena has years of experience. So, you know, in a way, she's like Kate once Kate actually has all that experience under her belt. You know, she's what Kate could become, hopefully minus the you know, sort of darker aspects, you know. Nobody wants to see Kate murdering people.
Yeah, very true. I mean, I can't wait to see those two together in a movie though, or if they can keep the same level of writing, I would be really freaking impressed. And I just really like, again, that sort of energy they've got. I think it kind of sets it up for an amusing double act. Yeah, I mean, I just really enjoyed this episode. I mean, like, I've got to kind of give them credit for making the most consistently entertaining Marvel show so far.
I would agree. Yeah,
and you know what? I'm going to include all the Netflix shows in that. I think they've managed to over the 5 episodes. It's been consistently good writing, consistently good direction, consistently good acting, and they've held it together better than any other Marvel show.
And what I love about this particular episode is that it really does tie everything together, because the you know, as we talked about in earlier episodes, like, oh, how are they going to, like, you know, keep putting this character and that character and that character in without it feeling forced? But they made it all work by tying Yelena into the plot, like, you know, in an organic way. Like, you know, we find out during that conversation that she was not actually just here on a vengeance quest. She was hired to kill Clint. And she says, "Oh, well, I will not mind completing this assignment." And you find out, oh, well, you know, she doesn't know at the time who hired her. But it ties Yelena directly into the plot.
Yeah.
You know, because otherwise I was like, well, is she just going to be showing up to take revenge? It just seems kind of left field, you know, for the, you know, but they made it organic, and so many of the plot points are tying up satisfyingly that I'm really impressed.
Yeah, they're really kind of holding it together.
Yeah.
It's an interesting show. Like, I really can't get enough of it. But also, because we're reaching the end, you kind of almost run out of things to say about it. Sorry if I'm flagging a bit tonight. I'm having to keep quiet because it's really late here, and like everyone's in bed, and I'm a bit worried about upsetting the neighbours. So I'm not as sort of enthused as I would normally be. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, there was just a lot of stuff to love about
week.
It, you know.
Oh, yeah. And next week I'm working, so I won't get to see it in the morning. I'll have to wait until like late in the evening.
Well, I always have to wait until late in the evening because I work, you know, so I have to wait until Wednesday nights. But it's always been worth the wait. You know, a couple of other things, you know, that I really loved about this episode.
Please.
Besides the interactions with Yelena and Kate, the interactions with Maya and Clint, I really enjoyed like the presence of grills.
Yes.
You know, they've tied that in really nicely, because obviously if you're a fan of the Fraction Hawkeye comics, you know, Grills is a character that we
Do you know what? I even having just read that, I've completely that completely went over my little head.
And now Clint is like sleeping on his couch, and you know, it brings in some of that stuff in the Fraction Hawkeye run about him in the apartment building with the neighbors, and you know, even if it's just kind of a nod toward it. it just keeps bringing in all these nice details from that run that I really love. And at the time I was like, well, how, I would love if they made this into a Marvel thing, but how could they do it if he has a wife and kids and all that stuff? But they did it,
Yeah.
Which is just so cool.
I think that's kind of the good thing about the remix nature of the MCU, in terms of taking from 80 years of comics history, they can just mix and match. I've been reading a bunch of older Hawkeye stuff at the moment.
Like what?
So I have been reading beyond the Fraction Aha, which I've read the first half of, and going to do the second soon. The Marvel Solo Adventures, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a bit like Marvel Tales or Marvel.
They're kind of episodic, right?
Yeah. So you get
like done 11, in one stories or something.
Yeah, 11. Well, no, they're continuous stories. So they're like Marvel Comics Presents. Like the old Wolverine. You got
I know. Yeah. I know exactly what issues you're talking about.
Yeah. So I've been reading those, and one of them, actually, funny enough, was his origin. So that was a nice, that's like issue number 2 is like his origin in the Carney and stuff like that, and the orphanage. And I've also just read, I could only ever find the first issue, but it is a previous run of Hawkeye by, I'm going to get it out now, sorry for all the rustling, guys. I've got a
very rustly bag.
Yeah, it's a plastic bag, I'm sorry.
Is it a gosh bag or?
It is indeed a gosh bag. So, yeah, Fabian Nikeza and Stefano Raphael's Hawkeye.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was a mini series, I believe. It's called The High Hard Shaft, which is kind of a much more street version of Hawkeye. And again, it kind of leads nicely into some of the thematic stuff in the Fraction run, because he gets involved with a woman again who might be leading him astray, and who's kind of tied to gangsters, and we it's nice that the Fraction run echoed that, and you got to see that kind of play out again. But yeah, I'd like to try and track down the rest of it, but I've only got that first issue. So,
well, that's what comic shops are for,
Yeah, hopefully Marvel will reissue it in trade. I hope. I'm getting too old to kind of run around tracking down back issues now. It's
you work in a comic shop, they'll come
but it
to
isn't,
you.
I don't know now. I mean, I think I'd much rather be able to grab a complete set and or a trade. I don't have that hunger for
digging through back issues.
You're not so much. I enjoy the digging, but it's the impatience of waiting. I found issue 2, 4, and 6, and now I've got to find 1, 3, and 5. Like, give me a break, man. Like all this stuff I waited decades to find, and now I can't. I'm just like, no. But hey, if you dig it, then enjoy it. It is good fun. Going through dusty old comic shops is one of the great pleasures of.
I mean, I'd be unsurprised if we have the issues at that sea.
Yeah, we'll take
I'll have to have a look.
You can read them to me live on the show.
I can act them out.
I've seen you throw things, Liz. There's no way you'll be able to use a bow and arrow.
Just throw things at you at the screen,
Yeah.
Be part of the fun.
Funny enough, did I ever tell you I used to do archery?
No.
A long time ago, many years ago. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I back then I could hit a target.
Oh, wow.
Not now, though. It's been a long time. It is a very particular skill, and it is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world. And I got sort of good, but for various reasons, don't do it anymore. But yeah, I used to own a bow. No
crime fighting.
No, definitely. But I used to own a bow and arrows. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, many again, I'm going back to when I was 12 or something like that. But anyway, great episode. I'm looking forward to the next one. By the time this is out, we'll have recorded Spider-Man, I think.
Yep, we should have done.
There is guys, there's a bunch of stuff going on the podcast and the videos at the moment. I'm really pleased with the amount of you that are listening into the podcast as well as watching the videos. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Every time I go and look at the podcast, the numbers have gone up, and there's a lot of you there. The audience is growing. I really hope that some of you will consider supporting the Patreon, which you can do for £2 a month. I can't pronounce the sort of screen name of the gentleman who has just signed up to the Patreon, but he signed up as his kind of signing name, large latte, one shot. And the reason for that is because he works in the coffee shop where I go and get my coffee.
Oh, that's so nice.
And he's a really sweet guy, and he so I just want to say hello to him. I hope he's watching this. But I will try and say hello again on the I don't actually know his name. It's terrible because we talk all the time about, like, he's asked for kind of recommendations on comics. He's a really lovely guy, and obviously, very hard work, and he's working in retail at Christmas, which we both know is a tough gig.
Yep. It's full on.
It is very full on. So thank you to that gentleman for signing up. I hope some more of you sign up. I really would love to see more of you kind of taking advantage of what the Patreon has to offer. There's going to be even more in 2022. Remember, we are taking the big break in January, but don't worry, we will be back, lining up lots of new shows and new ideas and things for then. Back tomorrow with Spider-Man, or today, whenever you watch this. I'm so confused right now. And then, Liz, we've only got a couple of shows to go, and then that's it for the year. We're done.
I know.
We'll get to look back with a tear in our eye. Mine will be tears of joy, of course, because it'll be a few weeks that I don't have to tune into you.
Paul will be crying into his pillow every night, ming doing the pods with me.
No, absolutely not. No, obviously we will keep in touch, I'm sure, over January.
Indeed.
But yeah, look, I am looking forward to the end, though. I'm really tired.
Well, there's been a lot. There's been a lot of stuff to talk about, and coming up to the end of the year, even more. So
next week's comics are crazy, which we're gonna go off air and we're gonna have a quick chat about, I hope. But guys, thanks for tuning in. At the Comic Crush, as you can see there, at Liz C. Jordan, as you can see there. You can catch up with Liz's stuff on her website, lizcjordan.com. Follow her on Twitter. You can follow me at at Comic Crush Paul, if you just want to follow my personal Twitter, or at the Comic Crush. On my personal Twitter, I just whine about stuff, though, so don't look for too much there. Follow this one at the Comic Crush. Check out the Patreon. Check out the web store. There's lots of good stuff in there. I probably won't be able to get things out in time for Christmas now, but I'll give it a go if you order in the next day or so. There is lots of comics. There are lots of comics, I should say, to choose from. Liz, anything else you want to say about this episode, or
just it's been great. It's really delivered on all levels, and I can't wait to see how it ends next week.
Cool. In case you don't manage to come back before the silly season really kicks into high gear, Merry Christmas to you all. I hope you're all enjoying yourselves and get to do what you want for Christmas, and you have some fun, and I hope you get lots of comics in your stocking. Liz, it's been a
pleasure, of course.
Yeah, I guess that was the word I was looking for. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Liz. It's lovely to see you as always. Catch you tomorrow.